Zentangle drawing method. So we're going to experiment with this. I know a lot of us have already done this in the classroom setting. We're going to do a little kind of a spin on this, where some of us may work with with traditional materials, paper and pen or pencil, markers. Um, but I'm also going to show you a way to do this in Google Canvas, which is kind of a fun way to do this, especially in our online setting. So Zentangle, let's talk about Zentangle a little bit. Zentangle, we break down the word, right? There's Zen and there's Tangle, right? So Zen, we're thinking of like meditation, like a meditative practice, and Tangle is like chaos. It's like you're like drawing, right? When things get tangled together, almost like strings. You're thinking of strings, so almost like two different things, or almost a juxtaposition is what I would call that word, right? When something's like calm and crazy at the same time. So making sense of a little bit of chaos, and just accepting that thing, right? I think would be at least my way of explaining what Zentangle method is, or drawing method is. So we see here they've broken this thing into different sections. They're exploring different elements of art, line, texture. There's a little bit of form on there. So Zentangle drawing methods. We'll look at some examples. See the same sort of thing happening here, like this thing broken into different sections and exploring different elements of art, different patterns. Now, typically, I'll go back. Typically, when we look at when we work on a Zentangle method, people work on a 3-inch by 3-inch square, and it's just like a very manageable, very approachable size to work on now, and like something you could complete. It's not intimidating at all. Some people really like it and they want to explore it a little bit more, and you can see someone just filling an entire sketchbook with the Zentangle method. See people now. This would be a representational or an objective work, right? So when something's non-objective, it doesn't really represent anything. It's just abstract work. This is more representational, so they're taking the Zentangle method and using it as a way to fill an image. We see that in these as well, right? We have this like jaguar or something like that, kind of very flat, and then this bunny that's beautiful, right? So they've broken the bunny into sections. Not only have they done that, but they've also looked at the contours. So these like Zentangles are kind of wrapping around the image. Like I know what it would be like to like the shape and form of this bunny's body, right? Here's Zentangle method used in a couple other creative ways. So here they've just compiled this like many examples of different Zentangles to make a portrait. Beautiful. In this case, it's just a realistic drawing where they've kind of blown out some Zentangle ideas in the back, right? It's a really cool, interesting way to do things. So here's some student examples. So the student kind of abstracted a field of flowers using different Zentangle methods. The student did their a wolf using a color background with Zentangle and black and white. I really like the contrast of this black and white versus color. Sometimes just a plain black and white design. You can see the students even starting to play with the contours in the back of the body, right? This, just a little bit of color in the eyes, and then the Zentangle method throughout. It's like very effective, really, really cool way to showcase this beautiful green. And another example using more of a kind of cubist background with a little bit of Zentangle techniques within this bear. So the Zentangle steps, right? So first, we're going to draw a border, pencil. In our case, we may be doing it digitally, but there is a pencil tool. We're going to draw strings. And when we think of strings, we think of like if I were to lay a string down, right? It just makes a random, like a shoelace or something. It'll make a random sort of shape that'll break the pattern into sections, into compartments or sections. Then we start tangling, creating patterns, right? And we'll give you some resources to come up with different patterns, maybe to inspire you to try to repeat some existing patterns, or you could come up with your own thing. We're not making mistakes. We're not second guessing this. Everything we do is correct. It's fine. We don't need to obsess over this. There are really no mistakes. We continue drawing, focus until finish, and then the final drawing can be shaded or colored in. Or sometimes people like to work with color as they're working. So I really like this. Slide. So this kind of shows the difference between a developed and an incomplete Zentangle, right? So if I look down here, I mean, are these terrible? No, they're doing the thing. I mean, you could turn this in. You'd say, yeah, I followed the steps of the Zentangle. Like I did a border. I broke it into strings, right? And within those strings, within those sections, I did different patterns, and there's variation. So I did the thing, but there's clearly a difference between these two things. And one is just, I mean, maybe these images at the top, they started off very similar to the ones at the bottom. They broke these things into sections, and they started making their patterns, but they took them to a different level, right? One thing I notice when I look at these is there's variation, right? I see variation in the size of the line. Like here, I see all of the lines are like, I know exactly what type of pen or marker this person was working with. It was like a very specific size. Here, maybe they were working with multiple pens, or maybe they filled in some areas, but I see variation, right? I see some areas are filled in. I see the thickness of the line kind of varies. I see shapes start to be very, very different. There starts to be different weights. There's organic shapes. There's geometric shapes. There's a lot of things going on, right? So I think while we're working on these, let's think about like how we can push them and make them a more developed Zentangle drawing. Another thing that I'd like to point out that I see here, right? See these triangles? I see this person. If I were to describe this line versus like say this line over here, I would describe this as like a free-flowing line, or more relaxed, more in the theme of Zen, or more in the theme of meditation, right? Here I see someone that might be frustrated. I might describe this line as frustrated. It's like this backtracking thing that we do when we try to be too careful, right? So let's let the pen make its mark, or whatever we're using, make its mark, and just accept that that is correct, right? Well, there's no accidents in this. We don't need to backtrack. Whatever we put down there, we'll make it work for us. That's what's going to work in our world, right? Okay. The next thing I'm going to show you is working in Google Canvas. This is an interesting alternative to just drawing on paper, right? I know a lot of us don't, and a lot of us don't have materials available, so this will kind of give us a way of creating without necessarily having lots of different materials on hand. So first thing is you need to make sure that you're logged into your EBC email, your Chrome account, and I know I am because I see my Bob Ross logo up there, my personal thing. And the next thing is I'm just going to Google Canvas, right? And I get to this area called Canvas, right? And it's going to bring me to this page. You can see I've started some stuff already. I was already playing with what it's like to do a Zentangle in there. I could draw over images. I was playing around with different stuff, right? So kind of bring up the image I was working on, which was this Zentangle that I was doing, and it looks like the materials all kind of look like I was just in the studio. I really like this program. So maybe it'll be best to kind of start from scratch here, and I'm going to go to new drawing. You could do new from an image if I wanted to import like a dog or Mike Pence or a honey bear or something, but in this case I just want a blank canvas, so I'm going to go to new image, and I see I have tools here. I have a pencil, I have a pen, I have a marker, I have chalk, and I have an eraser. That's my toolbox. These are the colors that I can choose. I have like a palette like this, or I could even go like custom and really drag things around and get crazy with it. But I'm going to go back to the palette, choose black, and then I have the size of the mark right there. So I'm going to choose the pencil and make the mark about that size. Opacity, that's how clear or dark something is. So I have my pencil tool. I'm just going to start with my pencil tool, drawing a square. Now I'm working on a laptop, so I'm just using my mouse to draw this. Some of you may have iPads, and I think you could use your finger. Lucky enough to have a stylus, that would be amazing, but I'm just using the mouse. So I have that there. I did my border. I'm thinking that's a little bit thick, the size of the line. I'll leave it for the border, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my strings. Remember doing strings or compartments. I'm kind of just laying it down like this. I have a string like that. I have one there, and I'm going to be sloppy here. I think for the purposes of not taking up too much time, but I think you guys will be able to have better control here. So I have that. I have my border. I have the strings. Now I need to start tangling, and I'm going to choose a different type of material. So maybe I like this pen a lot. One of the things I like about the pen is it's in this case it's very dark, but it's also like the speed of which you use the pen is going to determine like how thick or thin the line is. Almost if it was a real ink pen, if you go really fast, it's going to get thinner. If you go slow, I'm going to do this one slow so you can kind of see it gets a little thicker. It's harder to see with the thin line. So I started with like this kind of jagged pattern there. Maybe I want to, every other one, I'm going to fill in like this. Okay, so I did a little pattern like that. Now I might want to fill in these areas. Now this seems like I want to fill them in dark, so maybe I'll switch to the marker tool and I could see that I could change the size a little bit and make it a little bit bigger, just so it's easier to fill in this. Right? So I filled that in like that. Now maybe I want to include some color. I really like this chalk tool. I'm going to change it to a different color, and I'm going to bring down the opacity. You can see it. So something like that. And even the edge I could clean up, like if I wanted to grab like that eraser. And I know it's against the rules of Zentangle to use an eraser, but I'm thinking of this more as using the eraser as a tool, right? I'm using it to get a straight edge if I want something like that, instead of saying, oh, I don't like that mark, I'm going to erase back over it. So there's some nice workability. So we have the pencil tool, the pen, the marker, the chalk. We could play with opacity, things like that. You could even, like, if you wanted to add another layer, I could add another layer to this. If I wanted to put something over the top of it, say I wanted to experiment in this layer, I could go like this, scribbling all over the place. See how that pen tool works, pretty cool. And I say, do I want to keep that? Probably not, but I can see what it looks like with it there, or with it away. I probably want it away. I don't like that. I don't like that stuff. So I would just continue with this. So what you're going to do is just continue working. When you're done with the project, you can go over to these three little lines and save image. Right? In my case, it comes up right down there, right? And I have my image. It's saving it as a PNG, and I can drag that, put it directly into the assignment, and I'm done. So I'll go back and we'll kind of look at my initial, my final version. So I started with something very similar, and then I just went through and I played around. You could kind of see I used the pencil or the chalk to kind of shade in some areas. I tried to use as many materials as possible, and I was very focused on variation, experimentation, um, and that's that. So good luck with your projects. I'm looking forward to you guys using this new tool, or at least new to me, um, and looking forward to seeing your work. Thanks for watching.